Yeah, ho. Welcome back. This is Dreamland Excerpts, The Gift of Tera. Production date, July the 19th, 2017. That was the day I had this dream. 3,540 words. Please enjoy. This is a direct dream establishing more background information on new characters. I often have dreams like this that help me bring forth characterization. It was a mad, beautiful, and powerful dream. Premise. In story number 27, The Worst List, on planet Sal's world, coined as a super being planet, 10 individuals found a legendary myth and brought it to fruition. It was rumored for centuries that two lovers in the form of orbs needed to be combined to unlock the ultimate desire, not knowing that they needed to be brought together multiple times in a period of time to be complete, total being 15. This dream will explain a small amount of 10 of the worst list and why they were documented, then placed on the list, as well as their last joint scenario before the story kicks into high gear. Characters: Terrence as a worker at the facility. Superpower: imagination. The 5 members of Precious Cargo: Heroes, Jamboree, Plasma Explosion, Mythica, Lava, Gamble, The New Power, Currency, Twisted, Gemini Tightness, Ring Ring, Superpower Crimson X. The 5 members of the Destroyers: Villains, Mars, Crimson Tightness, Durago, Fire. Stickers: Rainbow Ray, Savagery, Tightness Short, Nightmares, Viral Lucanus. And here's the dream. I wake up in Dreamland to an almost cool room, glowing in orange light. I've been here for quite some time, in Domino's research facility, a research lab located in an active volcano, with facilities that stretch from the top of the insides of the volcano. It was built for a league of fire and lava withers that wanted a safe place to conduct their fringe experiments without being apprehended or infiltrated. It's at least 17 stories, enchanted with protection against extreme heat and pressure. It's home to over 1,000 scientists, lab technicians, and many people who agreed to be experiments. The residential wing is at the top of the volcano, and then some. My room is located within the throat. That explains the orange glow and why I was awakened. An eruption blew past my windows as the facility gently shook for the umpteenth time. I eventually make my way to my duty station, deep within the basements, where only extremely secret clearance workers have access to. I was one of the few people who had the luck to deal with research on the gift of Tera. The magical lives of many orbs combined several times to make one. The teams that deal with the containment of sensitive items finally were able to contain the gift of Tera before it shot off around planet Sal's world again. It's an orb the size of a standard bowling ball. It is transparent, with a light orb within the confines of it. The light orb is pure white, but it's a soft, clear light that never hurts any retinas. It's very soft in nature and grants anyone that holds it the ultimate desire: the ability to fly to the one they love. Like always, whenever someone is within 50 feet of it, it begins to emit a mist that looks like a wide, small tornado that moves in slow motion. It was glowing and emitting by the time I got through the 4th security door, but I've already held it and got the power from it that many have since Precious Cargo and the Destroyers made the urban legend into a reality. Overnight, the research team decided to work till 3 a.m. Explains why no one is here but me. I grab all of their notes and start organizing them in the way they have been for weeks. Day 23's paperwork was filed. Then I went to archive all of the video footage of the scientists and lab techs that worked yesterday, followed by some janitorial work. then finally opening up computers to admire all of the vocal notes taken along with the visuals that went with them. The team was working on ways trying to duplicate the energy that is the gift of Tera, with Precious Cargo and the destroyers being the first 10 to absorb its energy. They were able to jet fly around like the mobile suits of Knights of Sidonia. So was I. But by the time I got in, it was day one of the research, and I was probably in the 700s who have hunted the orb down for its gifts. With blood drawn from the first 10 in the research team, they have been trying to figure out the right schematics of machinery to handle the duplicated energy without it dissolving or becoming hostile. No successful attempts until last night, which is the reason why they stayed up so late. Their excitement couldn't be contained because of all of the joy I heard in many of their voices. I saw that there was another door that led to the chamber that was recreating the gift of Tera. I took the access key and walked myself down to the observation room that read 77%. The duplicated gift of Tera was looking a mess, as it seemed like ghost mist floating in the ether. Just very gray dull material, as the machine was replicating the energy of the original one. Yet there was already some of the emitting mist from the original orb floating around in the actual chamber and observation chamber. Everyone was informed that if your intuition is saying pull the plug, pull it. It was only 7:45 in the morning, and the procedure wouldn't be done for another few hours, it seemed. I went to go wake up one of the male scientists because he's the easiest to wake up. He thanked me for waking him as he saw the grisly-looking replication. He couldn't help but to feel bad about it too. We had some deliberating to do. Everyone was awakened to deal with what we thought was dangerous. Then the Precious Cargo and the destroyers were awakening separately. They still don't know that each other are in this facility because they have been escorted around carefully to keep them from learning of each other's presence. A little background into Precious Cargo and the destroyers. The 10 of them grew up in a city called Sins, one of the major cities of the entire planet of Salah's world, where super beings are born and raised for excellence. Everyone walks an individual path in life because no one is born the same. Yet these 10 always remain best friends until they started choosing paths that would separate them based on nature. Regardless of them making 5 power couples, their intelligence allowed for their superpower prowess to develop their careers as superheroes and villains. Nightmares and his powers over bacteria and viruses allow him to make anything sick because he can control bacteria and viruses. They all decided to make an anti-serum to his superpower by building it around his DNA, which is a common practice for most aerologists study superpowers and the ether system. In order to make the anti-serum, they needed 9 vials of his blood. He can't damage any of his friends or the ladies because of it. Dorego and Mythica learn how to make their heated powers unable to damage their friends by creating an enchantment skill that allows them to place their bare hand in fire or lava form, so they can be immune to all things heat related. Gamble created money within her legal limits so that all 10 of them will be rich for life. They all vowed to always thank her for that on her birthday. Savagery and his shark powers allows him to enchant any of them the way Dorego and Mythica does, so that they can use a shark for protection if they want to do anything deep sea related. Stickers has access to superpowered stickers he developed to have massive powers. The ladies had their supply cut off when they all graduated college, yet they still have thousands of them. Stickers enchanted tens of thousands of stickers with his rainbow powers. They can use a magical sticker for their bidding if they need help from any of the colors and their categories of the rainbow. Mars and Twisted are both Titaness wielders. Their god and goddess-like qualities sure did help them as kids and still do. Rendering themselves ultimately invulnerable allows them to permanently take up the enchantments they were bestowed with while growing up with each other. They are usually the acting martyrs of their groups. Ring Ring helped everyone out by having unlimited cachet connections around the world. The gentlemen made their connections as teenagers. This allowed them to have access to firearms to still make use out of the stickers that stickers bestowed on everyone. Yet their connections are mighty limited compared to the connections the ladies will forever have. Then there's Jamboree. Her enchanting ways can turn anyone into a kamikaze, an immortal one. They caused quite the ruckus growing up with everything they had going for them, superpower wise. I hope you can understand why they had many reasons for being put on the worst list. Them creating the gift of Tera was completely a fluke, even though their relationships changed marginally after they filed to be heroes and villains. Regardless, they had many opportunities of still working together. Ring Ring found a tablet that looked like complete black goo. It was always just a rectangular, book-shaped object. She brought it to everyone and they were all amazed at what the hell it was and trying to figure out what the hell it is. They could feel its sliminess, but it never stuck to their fingers or clothes. Research eventually led them to the gift of Tera, something talked about for many centuries. That day was the first day somebody finally found the black rectangular goo. All they had to do was reach into it to be told a message. No one wanted to reach their hands in it, but Mars and Twisted reached into it at the same time. Then they heard a cruel voice that made them yank their hands from within a strange portal. The both of them stared at each other while shaking their heads off, completely ignoring their friends and lovers. It looked like they were talking, but with no audible noise coming out of their mouths. Then they started looking around while not being able to hear anything but seeing everyone asking them questions. They could only hear themselves and took forever to reach their hands in a strange portal to finish listening to the message. Long story short, this voice was mighty horrible and wouldn't let anyone hear normally again until it tells the whole story of the gift of Tera, where they have to find these two black orbs, small as pool balls that will become more and more transparent once they are combined again and again for the sake of proving that if two things belong together, they'll find a way. Now there is a permanent way if the lovers see each other 15 times, where after every time they meet, anyone has a day to combine them together again. Until the light appears, until the light floats you, give you the flight you need so you can always find your way back to your lover. That was the first time anyone could understand the urban legend that is the gift of Tera. When they did it 15 times, all 10 of them gained the ability to fly like light. Then their friendship that was already walking on a tightrope fell. The 10 of them couldn't retain their friendships, let alone their lovers. They deemed the gift of Tera to be a crutch, in which they had never done it. Because their careers will forever be in their way, and they won't be able to utilize flight as a means of getting to their lovers when all they want to do is either save people or bring havoc to people. Continue reading, please. But in your case, continue listening, please. On to the present. For weeks, we have been piecing together the last time the 10 of them were in the same area. They fought so hard an entire town had to be evacuated before any casualties started to pile up. It's a bit of a stretch, but the ladies and gentlemen worked together to make the gift of Tera a truth. Then they went back to the great old war of good versus evil, making them arch nemeses to each other after receiving the gift of Tera. Basically turning the 27-year-olds into Dragon Ball Z on mind-soothing drugs plus hard-wiring drugs. Cool, calm, collected on top of fierce, steadfast, and superfluous. Had their meetings after gaining flight, nothing short of epic. This is why they are separated, and word hasn't gotten out to them that each other are in the mega facility. The last time the 10 of them were together, the superhero guild scolded the ladies for not taking the precautions to say the school bus jam-packed with kids. The gentlemen got the best of them that day to where they were all affected and had to be slain because Nightmare's viral control would take a life and never give it back. The 10 of them have tried to kill each other many times, even with the help of new to old heroes or villains, only for their help to not amount to much or to be killed. A lot of bloodshed in the Salus World galaxy revolves around a war of good versus evil. Precious Cargo and the Destroyers have contributed heavily to all of the bloodshed. Yet Domino's wants answers for what the gift of Tera is, at any cost. The cost has been protected for weeks now, but today just got worse. Stickers had a feeling he caught a glimpse of Twisted. He kept wondering why his team were confined to the east side of the facility. Somehow he got access to the west side and simply walked along in his sexy manner for hours. It took the facility team that were watching the destroyers hours to figure out where he was until he came walking back to the east side, back into the barracks for the gentleman with the maddest of faces saying that the girls did volunteer for the experiment. Before anyone knew it, they had on their costumes, muscles beyond bulging out of their fortified spandex with glowing eyes and entire glowing bodies. They were mad, like they get every time the ladies try to mess up their carefully laid plans of mayhem, or they are trying to disrupt their carefully laid plans of miracles. Dorego turned his hand to fire and stuck it inside everyone's chest to enchant them against heat so they can fly about during the high-level eruption he's about to cause. With Mars shaking the ground because of his Titan's powers, the plates below the volcano went into eruption phase again, while the gentlemen waited for the ladies to show their faces again. I eventually facepalmed myself when the alarms went off because of the threat for a high-level eruption began to develop. Then the 5 gentle, red lights that allowed a gentleman to fly started zooming around the facility, matched by the gentle blue lights of the ladies. About 5 good minutes after the alarms, the fight was on immediately as they tried to behead each other with their bare hands because their weapons weren't allowed on the facility. Most of the people in the facility were watching monitors hoping that the superheroes and supervillains wouldn't blast in the direction of the volcano. The laborers were preparing to activate enforced shields if the facility was damaged by super being blast. We just waited in agony thinking we're either going to lose irreplaceable amounts of experimental data or our lives. All of the animalistic experiments were being evacuated first. We super beings who weren't afraid of the budding drama in the sky stayed behind to help protect the facility. It was beautiful though, beautifully painful, as I watched the clouds of ash rise while they zoomed in and out of the damaging the facility as well as in and out of the clouds of ash. I'm sure they were taking in deep breaths of ash, but they were clearly not affected by it. Jamboree kept tossing giant plasma balls, bigger than a circumference of 7 feet, and missing her targets. If a plasma ball hit the volcano, a huge explosion would rip through the earth or the facility. Clearly, revenge was in her crosshairs and the facility wasn't important to them since it lied about the experiments. Twisted eventually broke out several of her clones that made it look like a swarm of gentle blue light zipping through the volcano. Her slash-to-neck ratio increased as the gentlemen were forced to dodge for their lives. Ring Ring was being prepared. Ring Ring was being proper about aiming. She was shooting so many X-cannons, it's a surprise she wasn't dehydrated by the 11 minutes of aerial combat. I can't recall her damaging the facility at all because her position was mostly over the throat of the volcano, about 100 feet above it, just breathing in volcanic ash like it's nothing. Mythica eventually went into the volcano to try to calm it down because Mars had it so volatile she was thinking the facility wouldn't be able to deal with the kind of vomiting pressure. Yet Mars and she were too busy fighting in a sea of lava that I barely saw their lights fly outside of the volcano. Gambo may have not used a lot of her superpowers in blast form, but her toe-to-toe, blow-for-blow game had savagery on the edge of his seat. She was steadfast just like everyone else, while zipping on her zigzags like she was trying to paint a pretty picture in the sky. Savagery, like stickers and nightmares, were tossing out blasts left and right. Didn't care what direction they were blasting, as long as they chipped away at the lady's life as much as possible. Most of the decimation of the facility was because of their doing. Even though I was told to evacuate by the laborers, I didn't want to go, but my view became better when I finally flew out in my gentle lavender light to help shield the facility from their blast. This fight went on for a mighty long time as the fight commenced from below and above. Eventually the volcano actually erupted because Mythica and Mars were fighting so hard that their knuckle-to-knuckle clashing caused shock waves that should have never originated from the root of the volcano. Then the 2 of those vessels got shot up with a hell of a lot of lava. I turned my back towards the ground as I zigzagged my way out of there while watching falling drops of lava on my way out of the way. It was pretty though, like snowfall but full of danger. As the heat rose, theirs finally began to disperse. They were running out of fuel to continue their hatred for each other. Then the ladies retreated first because Twisted made it so that her clones created a wall of her. I'm just floating there wondering how a 30-year-old could have more than 30 clones. Okay? Let me get back into this facility though. I found out that my section of the facility was unscathed, and the gift of Tera was replicated and looked perfect, regardless of it looking like a fucked up mutation at 77% earlier. I was nervous because it looked like a disaster waiting to happen. Yet, I was the first person to actually pick up the clone. One of the scientists asked me, what was I feeling? It felt like the original one. Then I asked, where was the original one? Somebody went to go retrieve it. We all followed it while the clone sat pretty as can be in my hands. I heard the whispers it used to give me when I first held it in my hands. It told me I had already received the gift and it'll stay with me until I release it again. I told the gift to Tera. They were able to clone her. She didn't understand, so I had to explain the process of duplication and replication. She got excited as the two orbs were brought within the same confines of each other. The glow was miraculous and beautiful, with two of them in the same spot. They started floating, then started to spin, while they inched closer and closer to each other. From the words of the ladies and the gentlemen, the gift of Tera will only move if you put it down, but now it's moving on its own. I was just waiting for radioactivity to be pushed off the chart to have us all bleeding out of our orifices, but we were totally fine. Totally fine until I woke up again while staring at the slow tornado of light.